Hey there, welcome back to my channel. I am excited for today's project. I felt like it was a good time to break out the needle and thread. Haven't done that in a while, which I know that might scare some people away, but hang in there with me for this video, for this project, and maybe I might change your mind to dabble a little bit. And if not, you might just find some entertainment from it and be oohed and awed and inspired by the colors and the materials that I'm using. But real quick, before we get today's project started, I need you guys to do a couple things for me. First is if you enjoy the videos on this channel, please give this video a big thumbs up and make sure to tell your friends about it. You can also subscribe to the channel so that way you don't miss out on any of the cool tutorials we have here on the SilverSilk and More channel. Let me show you today's project, by the way. This is the spiral bracelet done on pipe chain. It is absolutely stunning. I got to work on this project with my friend Danielle Wicks, who is also the content creator here at SilverSilk and More. And together we sort of configured and came up with this fun idea for you guys. And I think you'll be surprised at how easy and fun it is to stitch up in case you are in that sewing, bead weaving kind of mood. Let's go ahead and pen down the camera and go through our tools and materials lists. Now, the tools I have actually went ahead and made a video for separately on the YouTube channel that you guys can check out. I've dropped that link into the video description below so that you guys can find that pretty easily. I wanted to mostly focus on the supplies for what we're using today. So the first thing is the pipe chain, which is used to be a newer chain in the SilverSilk family, but it's been now part of the family for under well over 2 years now, I want to say, give or take. I love crafting with this stuff. This is an amazing material. It's a very sturdy type of chain. It does have a hollow tube that's made of silicone, and it's been knitted over with very thin wire, as you can see from that beautiful texture. I will say, though, if you've got a rubber, latex, or silicone allergy, this might not be the stuff to craft with, and you might find another type of chain, perhaps even the leather knitted cord, which is similar but does not have the tube on the inside. It's just pure leather. Little bit of a different shade, but it is that blue color that still matches with our palette today. And I really like the pipe chain because of its sturdiness, and it's perfect for doing bead weaving on because of that feature. It comes in a 3-foot spool, and so today we'll be using 16 inches, which is quite perfect for a necklace. Because it comes in a 3-foot spool, you can actually create multiple designs out of this if you wanted to, or a longer necklace, or several bracelets. Just really any combination that you can possibly think within a 3-foot spool. Next is the SilverSilk single strand end caps, which look like this. My findings are unmatched, you guys. The layers of plating, which is five layers. That's right. I still kind of get chills when I say it. Over brass makes this hypoallergenic. It gives it a nice, very high polish finish with my SilverSilk stamp on it. And there was one more feature that it's tarnish resistant. That's it. So many things to remember because these findings are so cool and I love talking about them. And they have little teeth on the inside. So this one's just a single channel type of finding that you crimp over either capture chain or pearlesque chain. It also works really well with the knitted leather cord as well as the pipe chain, coincidentally. So I'll be using it for that. This is the bright copper finish, which looks like rose gold. It's absolutely stunning. Along with that, you'll need your lobster claw, a few jump rings, and at the very bottom of this list, I've listed the head pins as well for some baubles, which I went ahead and made ahead of time and kind of threw them onto a jump ring just to give this a little bit more movement and pizzazz. All right, we have got some glass strucks, which look like this. Let me give you guys what the tag says here. This is Preciosa, traditional Czech glass beads made in the Czech Republic. Are these not delicious? Look how gorgeous this iris color is. Perfect match for the seed beads that we'll be using today, size 11 in this sort of blue, bright blue metallic frosty color. Absolutely stunning. That is going to go so well together. And oh yeah, my beading thread. I'm using for my actual project. I'm going to be showing you guys using a different thread that's in a higher color contrast. But ideally, whenever you get the hang of this stitch, you'll want to use something that completely disappears into your design. And so I recommend the crystal size 18-pound test. And you'll need about 36 inches, sorry, not 36, 65. And this one's a really good sturdy thread to have. I love that it's got this wiry feature, this wiry sort of texture to it, which makes it really easy to string through a needle. And it gives it memory so that it stays in the stitch that you want it to stay in and doesn't kind of flop all over the place as you're working on it, which is also very, very handy. As I mentioned, I will be showing you guys a different color here just to give you guys an idea of where the stitching goes. So I'm going to be using an orange thread, again, just to show you the all stitches up together. And we've already discussed the head pin, so we are just going to skip right through that. Alrighty, step one, we are going to string some beads onto our thread. Now, before I get started, I want to create an anchor for my thread, which means that I'm just going to grab a seed bead and I'm going to go about 7 inches. I'm going to leave 7 inches of thread as my tail. And I'm going to go through this bead a couple times to keep it nice and anchored and secure as I stitch through my project. I'm using a shorter piece of thread just to kind of show you guys the technique, but you'll want to work with a longer piece. If you're not comfortable working with all 65 inches at once, split it in half. It'll make it easier and you can always tie it off later. And I'll show you a quick tying method that I like to use, in fact, as we sort of progress in our project. But for now, go ahead and create your little anchor bead. And I'm going to string on a druck. Actually, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to start with 3 seed beads in that druck. 1, 2, 3. Druck, bead. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to do this a total of 3 times, in case you were wondering, as the graphic shows. Okay, so let's do that. Drop those down. Whoops. And 1, 2, 3 here of the size 11 seed beads, which are perfect to use because I tend to not see as well as I used to. And so the bigger the seed bead, the easier it is for me to string along. And I'm going to go ahead and go back through that first seed bead again. Actually, I'll be advancing forward through it so that it becomes a nice little loop here that I'm working with. And so that's sort of our first configuration. Okay, minus the little anchor that we added. So I'm going to go ahead and drop down to step number 2, part A, which is to string on a druck. Okay, and then string on 3 seed beads. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to not string through that next druck, but the seed bead after it. So it'll be this one right here. Okay, that'll sort of just stack on top, and you kind of want to just leave it alone as you bead through this. So once again, go ahead and string on another druck. And that'll be the stringing pattern from now on, is druck and 3 seed beads. 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to skip that druck and go up through that next seed bead. Now, let me show you the graphic. There we go. So as you can see, we've already strung that first part on, and now we're continuing on around our design, our bead woven part here. So I'll just string that right through. I don't necessarily have to tighten everything just yet. I'm going to leave it flat so you guys can see what I'm doing here. Okay, let's go to part C, which is druck. and 3 seed beads. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and I'm going to go back through that seed bead just after my anchor one more time. Okay, there we go. Kind of looks like a neat little crop circle, doesn't it? All right. So our next step just involves going through some of our seed beads to get us set up for that next row. So what that means is that I'm going to go through that drug from the second level, which was up here. Let me get this thread out of the way. Okay. And I'm going to go through that seed bead right there. So let's see. I'm going to sort of rotate all of this so that it's easier for me to kind of get a handle on. And I'm going to go up through those two and then just tighten everything. As you can see, when I start to pull this together, my spiral is going to be pretty cool. Let me flip these around because they're positioned incorrectly. There we go. They should be equal distance from each other as you sort of pull this tight, and they are set up now to continue on adding seed beads and drucks accordingly. So I'm going to now string on. You can either string on another druck and continue the seed bead there, or I was looking for my pipe chain here, or you could go ahead and string on your pipe chain. And actually, I'll do the shorter side up, making it easier for me to hold. And if I string on my pipe chain, now I can kind of clearly see what the pattern here is that I'm going to be stitching around. So let's go ahead and stitch a few more rows and see where we go here. Again, picking up the same pattern, I'm going to do a druck and 3 seed beads. That will never change. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Okay. On that continuing path forward, you're going to skip that druck and go through that next seed bead. And you see how this is starting to spiral not out of control, but like you can see those drucks lining up quite precisely. And so that's what we're looking for here. Okay, another druck. 3 seed beads, 1, 2, 3. Okay, on this next row, skip that druck, go through that seed bead. Should just snap into place. And again, mine is a little looser than what your guys will be because I'm using a very loose little thread here, but this is what it should look like up to this point. Okay, I've got this hole here that I need to fix now. So the way to do that is we're going to continue our pattern. Okay, string 1 and then 3, 2, 3. And once again, I'm going to skip my druck bead there, and I'm going to go through this seed bead here. And that completes a full row. Okay, there we go. Now, the thing is, when you get to a full row completion, which you can see from top down, full row completed, and then here my thread exits just before a druck. Just like last time, we're going to go through the druck and through that first seed bead to get ourselves up onto that next row. And then we'll simply continue on around again. Just pull this pipe chain back. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now I can kind of grasp my entire spiral there, and I'm gonna pull this just a little to get myself readjusted. Sometimes you just have to work on that tension, to get all that good bead weaving stuff tightened up before you're ready to get going again. All right, so now we'll just do another druck and 3 seed beads. 1, 2, 3. Okay, top down, in fact, we can look at, here's our druck from this next row. We're going to skip that and go through that seed bead. Okay, and here, same thing. We will go druck, 3 seed beads. And for this, skip that druck, go through that seed bead. That completes our second stitch, and then we're on our third and final one for this row, which is druck, and 3 seed beads. Okay, you're gonna skip that druck, go through that seed bead right next to it, and you should be right up against that first druck that you stitched on. You can see that this is really starting to come together, and the repetition now begins again after we pass through that druck and first seed bead of that row, getting ourselves set up for that next row as we stitch through. That's really all this is. It is just repetition from this point. Once you get a more longer, once you get a longer piece of spiral rope happening, the more sturdy it becomes. And of course, the thread makes a difference too. So let me show you what I'm talking about with this example here. And as you can see, this is sort of set up for maybe a necklace with some beads at the end, but or I could cut it short and just make a cool little bracelet. But yeah, like, isn't that just amazing how quickly this stitched up? I did use a white fire line for this, in fact. And really, the way to end this design is that what I do, or actually, we had talked about adding on thread, didn't we? So let me show you that real quick. I'm just going to grab some more fire line. And let's just say that I got halfway through my spiral. I did not want to use a whole lot of thread. And that's okay. And I want to add on some more. And so I can complete my spiral rope for a bigger focal piece. So I'm going to grab some thread. I'm going to go ahead and thread my needle. And what I prefer to do, this isn't proper for everybody, but it sure does work for me, is that wherever my thread ends, I'm going to sort of hook on and pass my next segment of thread through the bead just next to it. And I'm going to go through the stitching once. This will help to anchor it. And also, it sort of sets us up for continuing seamlessly without knowing where we tied it. So we won't be able to tell where it ended and where it began. So I'm just going to go through all those beads at the top row. Until my thread exits where I had it before, which was right through there. Okay. And now I've got a bunch of little threads here, but I can take this one out of the way and kind of just push it down, and then I can continue stitching with my new thread. And if I need to cut these a little shorter, I can at this point, but I think you guys kind of get the idea that, let's just say I'm going to add on a couple rows here. So I'll just do a druck, 3 seed beads. 1, come on, 2, 3. Okay, we'll skip that druck, go through the seed bead here. Okay, I'm going to do this a couple more times just so that I have my row completed. And so I'm going to do this the easy way. I'm going to set it down and I'm going to string on. In fact, this is what we did earlier. We went ahead and stuck it through our, or stuck our pipe chain through it. Go. Okay, druck. We're going to skip the druck and we're going to go through that first seed bead of our rope there. And now we're at the very end, just where our threads are. And so same thing here again as well, is that I'm going to string on a druck and 3 seed beads. 2, 3. And I'm going to go through that cluster of wires into that seed bead. I guess I should say thread, not wires, but you guys kind of know what I'm saying. And now to get up on that next row, we'll just go through our druck and seed bead. So here I've successfully added on more thread, and I've got my 2 tails now sticking out within the beadwork. So I can do a quick little loose knot, which is what I'm going to do. Not loose knot, I'm sorry. A quick like overhand knot. That's not, you know, not a giant knot per se, just a small one. And the reason for that is that I'm going to go ahead and stitch back my threads into the seed beads and other beads there so that it really truly does disappear. And I shall do that now. And I'm going to do that one at a time so that I have more control over where my threads are going and how secure it is. So string that on, and then I'll just go through these blue seed beads. Okay, I'll just give it a good little tug, make sure that knot is inside of one of the beads, and continue to secure my thread there. I'll just go through probably about an inch, inch and a half of beadwork before I trim it off. And believe it or not, that'll be enough to kind of anchor all of this in place. I always like to say the more complex and complicated your path back through the beads is, the less likely it is to come out and unravel later on. So, you know, kind of think about where you want your threads to go as you do this. Alrighty, I'm just going to pass that through here, making sure I don't tangle it into anything else. And then I'll just continue going back through some of those seed beads. Okay, there we go. And a few more. Perfect. And you will not be able to tell where my thread ends or begins with that particular method. It is, to me, the easiest way to add on thread and the cleanest. And you see I've got all of my new working thread here that is ready to go with more seed beads. The way to wrap this up at the end is that you're basically just going to go through that first row a couple times and then back through the beadwork. So by that, I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and pull all this together by going through the druck and 3 seed beads, druck, 3 seed beads, and druck, 3 seed beads. So really just that top row. Druck, seed beads. Okay, just keep going through that top row. And you might do this a couple times just to really get it nice and tight as you wish. And once you're sort of satisfied or you cannot put your needle through any more seed beads, then I think it's pretty much ready to stitch back through any of the previous beadwork that you've already got, in which I think a step or two after that explains. Okay, we're just adding more spiral rope there. And then here's where we are. We're just sort of pushing all that extra thread back into the beadwork to essentially make it disappear, and with a nice secure hold. Okay, perfection. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this. And I've got this beautiful spiral rope design. The other thing is that we got to put it on our findings, right? So let's go ahead and grab our single strand end caps. I've got a shorter piece of beadwork here with some wire that I've already cut. And I'm just going to grab my single strand end caps, and I'm going to grab a pair of pliers that have a wide nose that I can actually go through and just strategically place those through, give it a good squeeze both sides. If you've got a little bit of wire sticking out, go ahead and just take this opportunity to trim that off to get it nice and cleaned up. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. I'm going to make sure that my logo sticks on the side facing up so that my seams are sort of on their side as well. If you're laying this piece down flat, and be consistent with it for both sides. So just trim that off. Okay, pretty good. I think I still got a little bit sticking out there, and so that's going to bother me personally. I should get some pliers to pluck that off, but I just get the idea. Probably do that a little bit later. Anyways, it should look like that. Your seams should be closed on both sides. If they're not, go ahead and continue pressing with those pliers. And at this point, all you do is just string on your, so you grab some pliers here, jump rings onto the single strand end caps along with your clasp. Easy peasy. Open up that jump ring, string on a clasp on the other side. There we go. And you've got your bracelet all ready to go. You could just adjust the centerpiece, and otherwise it is heavenly. And we, in fact, went ahead and finished that up on step 8. How beautiful is that? It was so easy to put together once really the stitching was sort of at a point to where it started to spiral around the pipe chain pretty easily. And I think the trick with bead weaving is just knowing where your thread is going before you complete the stitch. If you could figure out and make sure that it's going to land on the right spot, you will have the perfect stitching for the project, and it'll just become easier as you sort of manage all your threads and beads. Luckily for this one, it only had the 2. And I do encourage you to practice with some thread that you might have that you really aren't going to use for the project. But if you're feeling brave, we certainly won't stop you from trying this project with the right thread. So I'm just going to flip my camera back around here and just say thank you to you guys that have tuned in to watch this video. I hope that there's some good takeaways from this. I enjoyed showing you how to make it and uncovering some of the techniques behind it. If you're still a little bit confused, we've got written instructions on the SilverSilk Online website. Go to silversilkonline.com and check out the SilverSilk video tutorials link at the top menu. In there, you can see that there are different projects that you can click on. You'll find the one for this one. And in there, you've got written instructions and all of the graphics that you can read through, that you can look at, and try and get a better understanding of how the bead weaving works. That's the way that I've learned, is just through diagrams. I don't actually like to read a whole lot, just my personality, but I do enjoy visual learning and seeing how someone does it, whether it's on camera or through graphic illustration. So we made sure we provided both of those options and written instructions as well for you guys, just so if you're really dying to try this, then you have everything that you need, maybe minus the materials. So if you're on silversilkonline.com, you could do a little shopping too if you want to. Thank you again so much for watching this video. I really enjoy teaching it to you guys. You can join our SilverSilk Silkies group on Facebook. Otherwise, you can find us on Instagram. And don't forget to give this video a like, a giant thumbs up. Tell all your friends about it, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. And I will see you guys at the next tutorial.